Hey there, you are listening to the Eugene Debs Music Experience Radio Hour, the sound of curiosity.
I'm Adrian Cervantes, an intermedia artist and cellist in the Eugene Difficult Music Ensemble, also known as EDME.
I'm Lee Pembleton, EDME's administrative assistant. We are a new music ensemble based in Eugene, Oregon, USA, Earth. Every other week here on The Sound of Curiosity, we chat with a new music composer or group and listen to their music.
Our mission in EDME is to perform underrepresented works of new music and to commission new music from traditionally underrepresented composers in order to open ears and minds. We work to expand the definition of what music can be and what music is capable of achieving, as well as who is capable of achieving it.
Our executive director, J.P. Lemke, defines new music as
new music is a catch-all term for sounds that are composer-driven, encompassing experimental, improvised, electronic chamber, and symphonic music. It is contemporary classical, but without the inherent contradiction embedded in that phrase.
This show is brought to you by our patrons on Patreon. If you would like to support what we do, join us at patreon.com/EDMensemble.
Today we hear part 2 of our interview with composer Fani Kosona. We will kick off the show with Narrative 1 from 3 Narratives, performed by Argyro Sarah Evans on violin. Prepare to be inspired. how about three narratives? Is that coming from a written text, or are the narratives you supplied um, strictly musically?
Yeah,
Or
it's the same. It's narratives I supplied strictly musically. These pieces are an homage, we say in French. How is that in English? Homage to my,
Almost. We
okay, to
we also say we use the French.
yeah, they are an homage to my teacher in composition, my professor in composition that I mentioned earlier, Theodore Antoniou. When he passed away in 2018, at the end of the year, I was really, I was really frustrated and struck from his loss. So I was constantly thinking about him because I missed him, and I missed our conversations and our discussions, and he was on all the time in my mind. And actually, he used every time that he had a loss like that, that he lost a friend or a member of his family, or a colleague, he used to write some piece, some lament, some homage to the people that he felt, intimate, and he felt that he lost, that it was a great loss for him. And so I realized that it would be a good idea that I do the same for him.
Hmm.
And I took this. I said before, now when you asked me about something else, I don't remember now what it was, but I said that we were different. Our approach to composition were totally different, and he was more narrative. He favored narration and the narrative element in
Yeah,
music,
right.
and I was structural. So for one time, I said to myself, I will, as an homage, I will try to get more narrative like he was, and be in his shoes and see things through his eyes now that he's not here anymore. And the second thing is that that's something that was always interesting to me from his teachings. He he used a lot of what he called heterophony, which is, as we say, monophony and polyphony. Well,
Hmm.
heterophony, what he meant by that is that you have a melodic line, but you don't treat it like a monophonic thing, but you could even orchestrate it for a symphony orchestra, for a very big ensemble, for whatever. And you can, let's say, work on it and sculpt it in um, in terms of density, in terms of timbre, in terms of let's say texture. I don't know, and make it thicker and make it more complex, the sonority, and treat it like that as a sculpture. And I liked this idea. I always liked it. And this time I decided to do exactly that with one instrument, with violin. Actually, Theodore, his instrument was violin. So that's one reason for which I also picked this instrument. And I did these three pieces, something like abstract memories from him. Like the first narrative, it has a subtitle. I think it was as he was walking on the water, something like that. Because Theodore, actually, he was moving in a very quick and rapid way, like not stepping on the floor. It was like stepping on the water. He was very quick because he was always, very active and doing things, and he never stopped, and he was so enthusiastic about everything he did. He was so energetic and very light kind of walking. That's about that is what the first narrative is about. And then the second narrative has a subtitle, his head in a stormy cloud, because actually he was, he was uh, uh, a man with a lot of passion and a very, a very, let's say, vivid temper. And, and he expressed himself,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in a dynamic way. And yeah, I like that about him as well. So the second is about that, and the third is about the impression of farewell to him when he died. He well, before he died, he had asked his son that his ashes um, um, must be should be dispersed in the sea in the south of Greece, in a city in the south of Greece. So a lot of friends and former students and people who loved Theodore, we went there and we were, beside the sea, and his son took his ashes with a boat, and he went into the sea and let the ashes away in the water like Theodore wanted. And actually, there was at that day there was a small voice ensemble conducted by a friend of Theodore, Rosie, uh, a beautiful ensemble. And they, at that scene that I mentioned, they were singing his music.
Mm.
That was really, that was really amazing. It's a memory that can never forget. It's a very poetic kind of scenery. So, yeah, the third narrative is about that. And let's say that this is a more emotional kind of writing from me, which is not so often, less often. But actually, it worked well, and it worked also well while collaborating with the violinist who did it,
Mm-hmm.
Argyros Evans. She's a beautiful person and a very skilled musician. She's wonderful. And she had the idea that I might continue with more solo pieces and make a series of narratives after these ones. And actually, this is my next step. Now lately I have completed a narrative four for double bass and a narrative five for guitar.
Mm.
They will be released in this year, later in this year. So yeah, so everything about Theodore Antoniou in my life has been always fruitful. You see, I just did
Mm-hmm.
a pass to him, and now I think I'm going to work on that idea for some years. I don't know.
We just heard Fani Kosona's Narrative 3 from Three Narratives, performed by Argyro Sarah Evans on violin.
When you're writing, do you ever think about in terms of accessibility for an audience, whether something will be familiar or accessible? Like, do you
Yeah.
think about that at all?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. Although my music is most usually rather complex, uh, I certainly do think about that because I actually write music um, willing to communicate with people, not willing to demonstrate my skills to people. But I have to be authentic to myself first. I think that's the main point. You have to be authentic to yourself if you want to communicate with people. So I'm let's say I have no definitive answer about this question, but
Mhm.
I'm working on it. Always a work in progress. I think about that a lot also at school when I teach the classes of history of music in the 20th century at school to kids. Um, uh, well, who the majority of them don't even understand the music of Stravinsky, let alone everything after that. So, and maybe Yanis Xenakis, and they pop up and say, please let us go outside sometimes. There are some kids like that. They say, no, please, this is a torture. And yeah, it happens. Okay, they are not accustomed to that, and when they grow up in a certain environment and they have they have certain cultural a certain cultural background, and yeah, it depends also on the personality, of course, because you can see kids who are very open to all kinds of things, and kids who let's say are afraid to uh, to get out of their comfort zone to something unknown and to something, yeah. So I don't think it's a question of what you write. It's mostly a question of who is it that takes it, and who is the listener, and in what degree um, he can let himself or herself understand and find his way and maybe risk a little bit. You have to teach people to risk things and get out of the comfort zone and make them feel safe, and maybe give them the opportunity to express themselves even if they don't agree with what you do, and maybe start a conversation at least
Mhm.
about what's happening, uh, not necessarily make them uh, accept it and prefer it, and you know what I mean. So I don't know. I kind of think that if well, sometimes I think about percentages. How many people in a classroom, how many kids in a classroom would be open to risk and go to unknown territories, and how many of them wouldn't? And I think that it's about something like a bit more than 50% who don't like to go to unknown territories, and a bit less than 50% that would be able and ready to do that. So maybe this is something that we you can generalize to all society. I mean, if it was if it was the opposite, if more than half the people were ready to go to unknown territories, the world would be different. And another thing that I think about very often is that whatever I do, I think I will be always a member of a minority, but a very meaningful minority that tries to lead the world to a better situation, that tries to, to start new paths for the world, to make something better, and not, go around the same thing that we see
Mhm.
results of it. So um, maybe some people would say that my music is too complex and not very accessible, but I give it with an open heart and not with a pretentious, let's say, attitude. I really want to communicate. This is what interests me, and I do that from authentic desire for communication. So I know that I'm different, and I claim my right to be different in the world. And I think that everybody has that right, but that doesn't think that we can't communicate, even if we are not totally alike. That's what
Mhm.
I think about. Well, I'm trying to I would be able to speak for hours about this thing. I'm trying to make things a little short.
We just heard Fani Kosona's Narrative 6, Repeated Cycles in a Random World, performed by the composer herself. To hear more of Fani's work, visit fanikosona.wordpress.com.
To learn more about or hear more by EDME, you can visit us at edmensemble.org or visit our Bandcamp at edme.bandcamp.com. You can also support us through Patreon, Venmo, or PayPal, username EDM Ensemble, and you can email us at edmensemble@gmail.com. Thank you for listening and supporting new music. Your curiosity makes this possible.
We will close out today's show with Fani Kosona's Ichnos, performed by the Hellenic Ensemble of Contemporary Music. Director I. Konotopoulos.